Well, great city council candidates, great conversation. We're going to continue that into the second half here. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's mayoral and city council forum on early childhood and youth. My name is David Martin Davies, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of Texas Public Radio to moderate this important community event. Tonight's forum is proudly hosted by the United Way of San Antonio and Bexar County Hub Partnership and Early Matters San Antonio, two organizations deeply committed to ensuring that our city's investment in and support in every stage of a young person's journey from early childhood through workforce readiness. This evening, we come together with a shared hope to elevate the issues that matter most to our city's children, youth, and families, including early childhood education, youth development, and the pathways that connect our young people to meaningful opportunities and careers. It's important to note that this is defined as a forum and not a debate. Our goal tonight is to foster an open and respectful conversation that allows candidates to express their perspectives, their priorities, and plans in a thoughtful and informative way. And so to that end, we're going to ask our audience to remain respectful and refrain from outbursts. We're not going to be doing applause for every answer. We're just going to have our conversation, help us maintain a space that prioritizes listening and learning. And if someone does decide that they have to make an outburst, well, we're going to have to ask them to leave. And this is the warning for that. So we're going to have kind of this tough rules here. For the duration of the evening, we also ask you to silence your cell phones at this time. And there are a few basic ground rules for this evening's format. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer each question. You alternate who goes first. Gina Ortiz-Jones, she won the coin flip, she goes first. And then we're going to have 30 seconds response for each candidate as well. The responses, everything will be timed. We're going to provide gentle time reminders as needed. There will be no direct exchange between the candidates, as our goal is to hear from each of them clearly and without interruption. And this is the first time in decades that the winner of the mayoral election is going to get 4 years in office. So this is a critical time for our city and our state, and our country, and each of our communities. So we're going to begin the evening to thank our 2 candidates, Gina Ortiz-Jones and Rolando Pablos, and joining us. So we're grateful for each of you to come on this evening, sharing your experience, your expertise, and your leadership with the city of San Antonio. We thank you for being here and caring deeply about our community, and we're participating in the civic process. And like that, let's get started. So number 1, child care, often referred to as a textbook example of a failed market. It costs too much for families at a time they can least afford it. It pays too little for the educators who make $11.35 per hour on average. Child care centers are making little to no profit. They're often shrinking or closing. So if you're elected mayor, what would you do to help rectify this challenge for so many who are involved? And Gina Ortiz-Jones, you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. Thank you to our hosts. Thank you all for joining us today. And I'm so excited I get to tell my mom, who she taught at Harlandale for 25 years, 2 years at McCollum. And I just remember many Saturdays, she would always say, I've got a meeting at District 20. And now I finally know what District 20 is. So it's nice to be with you all. And I would argue this is probably one of the more important forums that we will have. We talk a lot about the challenges we have in our community. I think a lot of that can actually be addressed with much more of a focus, certainly on the state level, on education and certainly childcare, which is so critical to our economy. I think I should say, I'm also a proud product of public education. Not only public education, Title I schools, right? All Title I schools. That public education allowed me to earn a 4-year Air Force ROTC scholarship, allowed me to get an education, grow up healthy, and serve our country. On the specific topic of childcare, I dealt with this firsthand, actually, in a number of ways. I remember, maybe people will remember too, a couple of years ago, San Antonio was competing for a space-related headquarters. We did not compete well for that, if you remember. And when you look at the matrix, it was because we didn't have sufficient childcare. I remember that when I served as the Undersecretary of the Air Force, and I booked address that because it came up in every town hall. So because it's something that was affecting our recruiting and our retention, which is why I wanted to prioritize it in my administration. I would work to those schools that have recently closed down. I want to see how quickly we can transition those either PK4SA or childcare. I also want to make sure that we are expanding the supply overall in our community. Joint Base San Antonio has the longest childcare wait list in the entire Department of Defense. I worked to address it, I was there, and that's important because that's not only good for military families, that's also good for working San Antonio families. So this would be a priority. It's critical for working families, and it's critical to our economy.
No question, no questions. So let's go ahead and go to Melinda Pubs.
I also want to say thank you. This is a very important topic to me. I'm a product of ESL in the public schools. I was born in Mexico. When I was 9 years old, my parents brought us here to get US-based education. My wife, Laura, and I have 4 remarkable children, and we've gone through all the struggles you can imagine that parents go through. You know, when Laura was practicing, we sent our kids to daycare at 6 weeks old. We really didn't have any other option, and it was very expensive. In economic development, I think that childhood education is one of the most important aspects of workforce development. And I will double down on making sure that not only do we work with our schools to educate our children, but also with our parents to make sure that they can afford childcare, especially those parents, those single parents who work on weekends and nights, where they don't have the childcare available to them, and if they do, it's extremely expensive. So I think the city of San Antonio needs to get even more so involved in this aspect because, let me tell you, decades and decades of poverty in this community have led us to where we are today, and the only way we're going to get out of this poverty is ensuring that we educate our children, and we have to start them early, and not just with education, but also with nutrition. It's very important that we focus on that as well. So I look forward to today's conversation. I'm all in. We've lived the experience. Now we have two of our children are now in college. One of them just graduated actually on Saturday, and we just heard he's moving back to work here in San Antonio, so we're very happy.
Right now, 30 seconds for Gina Ortiz-Jones.
Sure. I would just add, on my website, I have to think that 100 days. It is included, first 100 days, because I think there is, quite a bit of intersection between PK4SA and childcare, and the importance of addressing these inequities as it relates to. Yeah. Okay.
All right, we're trying to do something. But just
No.
okay, we're going to reset the clock on that. All right, give it another try. Just really choke on that.
Test. Okay. So the criticality of this on my website, first 100 days. One of the things I'd like to look at how IPS is done.
Yeah, try this.
Okay. The first one, one of the things I put on there to get critical for our country is making sure that we are being thoughtful about the supply of childcare in our community, all throughout our community, but also for those that are working non-traditional hours, right? We know this is, when you look at the main industries in our community, it requires that we're being thoughtful about the supply, but also meeting the needs throughout as folks are working long shifts. Those folks at the Toyota plant, they also need childcare in the evening. So it's important that we're thinking about it that way.
Okay, we'll end about.
The only thing I would add is we need to make sure that the childcare is of high quality and that it's affordable. And that's the challenge. We have to make sure that the quality is there because when parents go to work, they want to know that their kids are safe, they're being taught what they're being taught, and then when they come back and pick them up, they'll know that they've had a safe experience. So quality childcare is very important, as well as affordability.
Question 2, and Rolando Pablos will be the first responder of this one. With the structure of government in San Antonio, the mayor does not have the ability to influence, impact what happens in K-12. However, that does not mean that the mayor can't lead on education. The Harvard Center on Development and Child Care reports that 90% of a child's brain development happens before that first day of kindergarten. As mayor, how would you leverage policy, investment, public-private partnerships to ensure that San Antonio's early childhood education is world-class, starting from birth?
Well, the mayor may not have the direct ability to affect that policy, but as a leader, the mayor can rally the troops behind this effort. And let me tell you, using relationships in Austin and in Washington, D.C. to shine the light on the needs that we have here, I think is very important. Whenever the mayor leads council, it's understood that really it's the city manager that runs the show, and there's really nothing that we can do directly with our school districts as it relates to policymaking. But I will tell you this, there are many other things the city can do. Example being pre-KSA, the city can get involved in helping. And I would do so through workforce development projects that include early childhood development, and also allow the people who have to go to work and need the service to afford the child care. So there are many different ways that the mayor can affect that. I think that also being an advocate in front of the school districts, making sure that we keep them engaged and get the parents also the support that they need. A lot of parents go to work, they come home tired. The last thing they want to do is work on homework with their kids. So we need to also figure out what it is that we can do for the parents themselves. And we have some ideas with actually giving the parents scholarship, making sure that parents can also partake in some financial assistance, as well as the children. After-school programs are very important. That also helps with keeping our crime issue down. So there are many things that the mayor can do, and it all is based on leadership.
All right, now, Gina Ortiz-Jones, your choice.
This is so critical. I put this again on my first 100 days plan. I want to know how many kids, how much talent are we leaving on the table as a result of not fully meeting the need for pre-K in our community? And then 2, what's the bill, right? Show me what the bill is. I would argue that's a bill we can't afford to not pay in light of the inequities in our community. And many of you, we've all lived, right? You either pay at the front or you pay at the end. There's no not paying. And so we know that the highest rate of return for investing in people is always when they're younger. And I think it's really incumbent on us to ensure that we're doing everything possible to set our kids up for success. Because you're right, we can't tell Harlandale ISD what to do. We can't tell Northside ISD what to do. But we as a community can commit to give them the best possible product, right? And I think that's important that we do that. I think, I've also seen this at a different level when it comes to our military families. It's really important that when they are making decisions about where they want to accept an assignment, this is a key consideration, the quality of public education that they're going to have here. So it's important as we are thinking about our unique identity as Military City USA, not only supporting military families, but also, our community, disproportionately sends young people to serve. The number one indicator of whether somebody will serve in the military is if they know somebody who has served. That's why Bexar County, San Antonio is so critical to that pipeline. And if we are not producing enough healthy kids, academically prepared kids, it's in fact a national security issue, right? I would argue, though, if you're not healthy enough or academically enough prepared to serve, you might not be healthy enough or academically prepared enough for our economy. So it's really important we understand this as an economic initiative, right? It's not a nice to have. This is a must have for our economy, especially if we're going to be serious about addressing the inequities in our community.
All right, now 30 seconds.
My wife Laura, she's a retired dentist. This past summer, she was called by the principal of Health Careers High School because he needed somebody to run the dental department. And so she took that job. So she is now a public school teacher. Let me tell you, one observation that she makes consistently is parental involvement. The parents get very involved in their children's education. They're in her face every day. They're in there asking questions. They are heavily involved. And a lot of these students end up going to, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, there was more time on the back.
I lost track of time.
So let's go to 30 seconds with Gina Ortiz-Jones.
Yeah, I think when I think of, it's a really important point, parental involvement. I think parental involvement is at times a direct function of how much time that parent actually has. Again, I was raised by a single mom. I went to John Jay High School. My mom taught at Harlandale, kids with special needs. And so we know many folks would love to go to that PTA meeting, but you know what? They're working, right? Or they can't, they're not able to meet it. And so it's really important that we're thinking about the unique considerations, the unique challenges in certain aspects of our community, and how as we as a city can invest to make sure that they have those same opportunities.
Okay. Now, Tina Ortiz-Jones, you will get the first responder on this next question. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce reports, a report by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce says the lack of access to child care cost us more than $9.6 billion annually across the state of Texas. Large and small San Antonio employers and the military that are consistently expressed that they face the downstream impact of lack of access to affordable care for families in terms of many parents on the sidelines, the turnover, the absenteeism. So how would you consider a public-private partnership to help address an area that lacks the investment required to support our workforce and our employers?
Look, I think it's an all of the above approach. Again, I saw this firsthand. I just mentioned the fact that we lost out on a military mission because we got dinged on not having enough childcare. This, again, there's on average 300 young people on that wait list at Joint Base San Antonio. And I heard about it, y'all, at every single town hall that I had. So I asked my folks to actually help me, let's understand the impacts to these, of these numbers. So they ran the numbers and they found that if a female service member already had a kid on the wait list at the CDC, right, so child care on base, if she already had a kid on the wait list, if she got pregnant, the odds of her separating from military service increased by 3 times, right? So we saw directly the impact of not having sufficient amounts of child care in our community. So I understand this is critical, not only to attracting people here, but to keeping people here in our community, which is why, again, I look forward to working with those that want to help us address the supply as well as the quality in our issue. This is something that, if we want to be able to compete for talent, then we need to be thoughtful about this. I think it's also really important as mayor, though, we're thinking about the other things that can help certain communities with the child care piece, and that is certainly housing that is affordable. Right? I think we have to think about these challenges in the way that people live them. They don't normally only have a child care issue. They may also have a transportation issue, a housing affordability issue, which is why first 100 days I said the kinds of projects that I want to help our city staff to help me understand how we can go faster on. Projects that are 70 to 100% affordable, that co-locate child care, and that help us meet our transit-oriented objectives. Help me understand how we can go faster. That is how people are expressing the need to us. But then we can also be very clear to the developers and investors and say, hey, these are the kinds of things that we're looking for, right? People are living these things in an intersectional way, and our leadership and our solutions need to reflect that.
All right, 2 minutes, Alonzo Palos.
So I put myself through college working in restaurants, washing dishes, waiting tables. Actually, that's how I met my wife. So I have a very special interest. I studied hospitality, so I have a special interest in the hospitality business. And over the last few years, I've noticed a disturbing trend, and that is restaurants closing down. We have some iconic restaurants that have shut down here in town. So I've been working with the Texas Restaurant Association to figure out exactly what is going on. And there are other issues with respect to regulation that the city imposes on these restaurants. But one of the most important reasons is because restaurant owners can't hire people, particularly individuals with children that cannot afford childcare. So I've been working with the Restaurant Association to figure out a solution. And I think we have one. And it involves the universities in town and their educational departments. If we can bring in these students that are studying education, that need to get service hours, and involve them in helping these restaurant workers, especially those that have to work at night, late nights and weekends, bring in the city to be able to subsidize childcare for them in a very special way, because this is really involving after hours and weekend childcare. And let me tell you, when we pitched that to the industry, they loved it. So this is something that I intend to work on, making sure, and not just for the restaurant industry, but all of those industries that require shift work into the evening and on the weekends.
All right, 30 seconds for Tina Ortiz-Jones.
Yeah, I think it's important when we're having this discussion, we're also recognizing the community that we're in, right? When we're thinking about restaurant workers, many restaurant workers are undocumented. And they also have childcare needs. And so there's a unique considerations with folks that are now unfortunately experiencing the fear of not being able to take their kid to school, not understanding what might happen to their kid, and maybe not even feeling comfortable going to work themselves. And so when we're having this conversation, I think it's really important we bring that perspective and have leaders that are willing to recognize it and speak up.
Right.
Yep.
All right, okay, now 30 seconds to wrap this up with on the bubbles.
Yeah, our program doesn't distinguish status here. It's anyone who needs that childcare, who needs to work. The restaurant association is all in. So we're really looking forward to making this happen. And it's going to require the city's involvement, the city's help, because that's where the funding comes in. The universities, I think it will be an easy sell for them because they get their students to participate already in what they're studying. So it's a win-win for everybody, and we're looking forward to it.
All right, so our focus now turns to youth. And others, you're going to go first with this 2-minute answer. Community safety is a priority for many San Antonio residents, including young people. Ongoing discussions focus on crime prevention, emergency response, and youth engagement programs that contribute to a safer city. How do you plan to build trust between young people and law enforcement in San Antonio?
Okay. Well, certainly youth intervention is very important when it comes to crime. I don't think we have enough youth programs, after-school programs in the city, and we need to really double down on that because it has been proven that if we keep these children busy in the afternoons while their parents are not home, if we can help them with their homework, if we can help them simply just stay out of trouble and not get sucked in by the gangs, I think that is a winning combination. Now, with respect to the respect that they would have with police, that's something we need to work on. We also need to train our police officers to be sensitive to that. The Safe Officer Program is working. I really like it. I like to expand that. And that is police officers that actually get to know their community. We kind of strayed away from that. And that will certainly include our youth that need all of that intervention in the afternoons and on the weekends. But guess what? Youth sports are very expensive. I've encountered situations where some of these parents can't afford to put their kids after school sports programs because of that expense. So we need to be able to defray that. Tutoring is also very important. We have to find out ways where we can get tutoring. A lot of times the students really don't know what questions to ask during class. When they're getting sent home with their homework, they really now are in true loss because nobody's really able to help them. So if we can intervene and make sure that these after-school programs are well-funded and that there's also relationship building with the police, I think we'll have a winning formula.
All right, now 2 minutes, Gina Ortiz-Jones.
When it comes to our young people and their understanding and the need for them to have trust in law enforcement, this is, I think, where it's really important, again, that you have leaders that understand unique experiences. Certain parts of town have a different experience with law enforcement, right? They don't necessarily feel comfortable with who may show up, and whether you're, a young Black person or whether you're an undocumented person. And that's why, for me as a leader, it'd be really important to be clear about, what is going to happen when somebody shows up at your door, the information that must be provided to make sure that our community is as safe as possible. I think a leader's number one job is to keep our community safe. And that starts with ensuring, of course, our law enforcement, our first responders are well-resourced, but also there's mutual understanding of what needs to happen in that engagement. I think it's also really important that we have law enforcement that is able to deal with different kinds of young people, right? When members of the LGBTQ community, students that are differently abled, right? So ensuring that our law enforcement knows how to engage with the deaf community appropriately, or other disabilities that might prevent that engagement from going as smoothly as possible. I think, I'm very proud of the fact that, our community is, having grown up in Military City, USA, you just kind of revere the military and law enforcement in general, that public service. But I know that's not the experience of everyone. So I think when we're thinking about our solutions throughout the city, we just got to keep that in mind.
Right now, 30 seconds, we're on the votes.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we need to make sure that our safe officer program selects individuals from that same community so they can empathize, so they understand what those challenges are for that community. You know, we just need to get back to community policing in that manner. It used to be that everybody would know a police officer and we'd be able to engage with them without fear. And we need to get back to those days.
And to wrap this up, 30 seconds for Gina Ortiz-Jones.
I must say, when I think about youth and law enforcement, I think about my own personal experience. My mom was working many long hours, and so I was getting straight A's, but I was also getting straight U's in conduct. So much so that I was involved in an altercation, and I had to go before the juvenile court judge. I was on probation for 6 months, and I had to pay a fine. And I thankfully had good folks in my life that helped steer me the right way. And so I think when you think about youth, it really is about making sure we steer them in the right way.
All right, next question, and Gina Ortiz-Jones, you'll get this one first. And so Governor Greg Abbott's education policies have generated significant discussion regarding local control and funding. How do you, as mayor, plan to balance state directives with the special needs of San Antonio's public school system and out-of-school time programs to ensure improved educational attainment for our city's students?
Yeah. So I think it's really important that we take the emotion out of this, but are very clear-eyed about the impacts of the voucher scheme, right? We have seen in other states the impact that this has had. It has had a larger student to teacher population ratio, right? We have seen other schools close as a result of that. We've seen increase in property taxes as a result of that. So I think we have to be clear-eyed, have an open conversation with our superintendents in our community. They're frankly already working to mitigate against some of those impacts. At a macro level, I think it's also really important to understand the unique role that we play in the country. 1 in 10 kids in this country calls Texas home. So if we are not educating our kids appropriately or ensuring that our kids are meeting a certain level of academic standards, it is in fact a national security issue because of the number of young people that live here. That's why I've been so committed to investing in thinking, being cognizant of the ways in which at the city level, yes, we can shore up pre-K for SA, right? We can make sure we are being thoughtful even about housing solutions can help ensure that certain parts of our city are no longer depopulated, which continues to result in more schools closing. So I think it's important as we go forward, we are speaking truth to power, working with our superintendents, collecting the data, and showing everybody, the impacts of some of these decisions, because we ultimately are going to deal with it. Right? If we continue to see the inequities exacerbated as a result of some parts of our city having good education options and others not. This is also so critical for our economy, but also for our democracy, right? We need an informed public, and it starts with a well-resourced public education system.
Well, about those 2 minutes.
There's no question that our school funding system is broken. We need to take a look at it. Look, every child deserves a quality education. We need to also make sure that we stop scapegoating our teachers. When I see Laura come home and tell me some of the stories that she sees, it's just not fair. We have to make sure that we work with all 17, 18 school districts that we have here, making sure that we're up in Austin advocating. A lot of the issues that your groups advocate for are really, advocating for in Austin. So we have to make sure that we go up there as a community. And as mayor, I will be up in Austin advocating for these issues, particularly early childhood care, because we have to work as a community. We have to work with our school districts. We have to make sure that every child is educated. And Gina's right. I mean, it's not fair where you go to some parts of this community and you're like, what's going on over here? And you go to other parts and you're like, wait a second, it doesn't match. So we have to make sure that we look at these areas of town, like these school districts that need the help, and focus on that. And that translates also to infrastructure in other parts of our municipal government, where you're like, wait a second, why have we been going so long with these inequities? And it shows. You just have to go to certain parts of town, and you can tell the differences are stark. So as mayor, I want to make sure that we advocate for these communities that need help.
Okay, now 30 seconds.
So, as we all know, the governor's priority was getting that voucher stamp passed. The other piece of it, though, he said, well, if we do this, then we'll fund public education, right? They got the first thing. You know what they haven't spent a lot of time on? The second thing, right? You all are watching this, right? And so it's really important that we actually have the courage to do this thing. I think this is so critical. I would absolutely be talking about, okay, now the second thing, where's the second thing you said we would do, right? That we cannot let this session go through without that.
Rolando Pablos, 30 seconds.
There are two bills going through the legislature right now that are hopefully going to address that. But if I were mayor today, I'd be in Austin. I'd be camping out in Austin, making sure that happens, because we cannot defund our schools. Okay, parental choice fine, competition fine, but not sacrificing our public schools. We have to make sure that they're well funded. And not only well funded, but we have to make sure that we give the teachers what they need to be able to teach. It's not fair that they have to go out of pocket, and we have to be very supportive of them. So I would be against that.
All right, now, we have 2 minutes for this question. Collaboration is often referred to as our city's superpower. The Future Ready Plan is developed by a cross-section of community partners with a North Star goal of increasing post-secondary enrollment of Bexar County High School graduates to 70% by 2030. What role do you see the city playing in ensuring that we reach that goal?
Well, given the limitations again that a mayor would have, I still would double down on after-school tutoring, with youth support in the after schools, working with parents. Right now we see a lot of parents having to ask their children to go work to support the family. And well, I understand it, I get it. I grew up in that environment, but we have to also make sure that we can avoid this. Because every minute a child spends working is a minute they're not studying. We also have to make sure that the parents understand the system. My parents didn't speak English when we came to this country. They weren't able to get involved in my education. I had to kind of make it up as I went, and luckily I came out of it. But there are a lot of parents who do not understand the system. We have a child with special needs, and we have to fight for her every step of the way. I can't imagine parents who don't speak English or who don't have the wherewithal to fight for their kids. We're fighting with Northeast right now. Mia has Down syndrome. We're having to fight with her teachers. They're not really accommodating the way we should be. I can't imagine other parents who are struggling with that. And so that's why Laura and I have always been involved in advocating for people with disabilities, that in our school districts, we have to make sure that our parents are well informed, they're engaged, and not just for the education now, but also understand the pathway to college, to other training programs. We have to make sure that parents are engaged. And that right now is the challenge. Getting our parents engaged, they're distracted. A lot of them are living paycheck to paycheck. Only today matters, and we have to make sure that we help them so that they can have that vision to be able to send their kids beyond high school, through high school and beyond high school. So I will be very supportive of that.
Junior Ortiz-Jones, 2 minutes.
I think it's really important. Earlier, we just talked about what it take to be successful. I think when we're thinking about collaboration, what's also going to be needed is the ability to speak truth to power. I'm thankful for Pablo Rolando sharing his personal experience with kids with special needs, and this is why I think it's so important that the mayor of our city is going to talk about the importance of the Department of Education and those protections to ensure all kids have a minimum level of education, to include our kids with special needs. Again, my mom taught at Harlandale 25 years, kids with special needs, so the most vulnerable in an already very vulnerable community. And I know it's really incumbent on us to make sure that we are serving those kids as well as we can. The Department of Education is also really important. You know why? Because I just went to go visit with the community healthcare professionals on the south side. Actually, many of the students are from Harlandale and McCollum, and they are ready to work. They're a ready-to-work partner. And with those folks, the average person there is a 26-year-old Latina, couple kids, single mom. 40% of them spent some time at Palo Alto or Northwest Vista, but now they're on a different path, right? They're not the doctor or the nurse, but they're everybody else in that clinic that's going to make it run. And we haven't figured out how to AI our way out of drawing blood yet, So this is a really important skill, and it puts them on a different economic trajectory. It was important for me to go visit with them to know and hear from those students firsthand, because those ready-to-work students there are there with the help of a $7,000 Pell Grant, right, from the Department of Education. So again, it's important we are highlighting at the various levels the ways in which their decisions could hurt our economy in a number of ways. I think one of the things I'd also prioritize is being a good partner with Dr. Flores. That $1 billion bond that just passed, shame on us if we don't ensure that we are driving and really focusing that to ensure that we're training for the needs in our community in a number of ways.
Well, 30 seconds for Rolando thought.
Yes, internship programs are very important. Collaboration with the private sector is extremely important. We see it with Laura. She has relationships with the dental community, so the students can go practice, can get real life experience, and that carries across every industry. Particularly here in San Antonio, we have many industries in cybersecurity, industries in manufacturing. We have to work with the private sector to make sure that we can connect the students to those opportunities, hopefully get some paid internships.
All right, now 30 seconds for Artis Jones.
Well, look, I think this is important not only as we think about the economic uncertainty that we're headed into, but also as we're working with the other stakeholders in our community, those that are focused on attracting the kinds of jobs that we are in our community. We've got to have, I think, a mayor that is connecting each of these dots. From early childhood education to graduation rates to higher ed to workforce development, again, to the economic outcomes that we seek in our community.
All right, now we go to transition to workforce is our umbrella topic here, and Junior Ortiz Jones will first for 2 minutes. Post-pandemic, San Antonio reportedly had an estimated 35,000 plus youths ages 16 to 24 were neither working nor in school, often referred to as opportunity youth. How does your vision for the city address the challenges faced by these young people in obtaining quality education and employment? Students.
I think it's really important. I talked earlier about the Ready to Work program. I think this is a program that is an excellent example of where our city's heart is always in the right place, right? And there were resources to do what we all know to be important, which is to upskill our folks. I think now when we look at the data, though, there clearly are some ways in which we can improve that program. Of the 2,000 folks that have gone through that program, 25% of them are still not in an approved job on 12 months after completing that program. That shows me that we're not training people to need. Otherwise, people would walk right into a job, right? My concern with those statistics, I went to John Jay High School. I grew up in Heritage. So when we talk about opportunity youth, I know the most dangerous part of that is when somebody has gone through that program and they still are not in an approved job after 12 months, they're gonna go home and they're gonna talk to their buddies and they're gonna say, hey, don't do that Ready to Work program. I did it and I still don't have a job after 12 months. And that is the worst kind of commercial, right? So I think it's really important that we refocus that program. I think the new metric should be 90% of folks in an approved job within 90 days. I say you also got to sign a contract. You got to work in San Antonio. I've talked to some city council folks. We lose a lot of those graduates to Houston because Houston pays for it. I don't know about you, but I don't want to pay for folks to be ready to work in Houston. You got to be ready to work in San Antonio. And if that means that we focus, on some of the things that we're training folks for, then so be it, right? Because at the end of the day, this is about making sure people have a skill that allow them to get a higher paying job so they can live comfortably in our community. That's what we're about. Right? That's how I would refocus that program.
All right, now 2 minutes for Rolando Pablos.
There was a disturbing article today that said that San Antonio is the worst large city in Texas in which to start a career. That's troubling. I don't like to see those statistics. And I think that one of the best ways to approach that is to ensure that we bring those companies here that are going to bring those quality jobs. What's happening right now is that those companies are skipping us, and they're going to Dallas and Houston and Austin, and guess what? They're taking our children and grandchildren with them. We're creating talent, and the talent is leaving because they can't find those quality jobs. So we have to reverse that trend. So part of my effort in economic development and job creation is going out and bringing those companies that are going to bring those quality jobs They're going to create those paychecks that will allow the youth to really start a career and ensure that they can afford to live here and cannot continue to live paycheck to paycheck. And that's what's happening. And the big reason why it's happening is because we have low-wage, low-skilled jobs. We haven't been able to attract the high-wage jobs that we really deserve. We're educated. We have more college students in San Antonio than in Austin, but we just can't afford for the brain drain to continue to happen. So I will be committed to ensuring that we stop the brain drain and that we bring the jobs here instead of sending our kids elsewhere.
I got 30 seconds for the stone.
Yeah, one thing I want to make sure that we focus on, especially when we're talking about our youth, I would prioritize also making sure that people appreciate the really good opportunities when it comes to the trades. I'm very proud to be endorsed by several unions. And I think the apprenticeships are something that our young people are not sufficiently exposed to. But you and I are when we call somebody to a plumber and we see how much that bill is, right? So you don't have to necessarily have a college education, I think, to have a good income and trades help that.
Now 30 seconds, wraps up.
Absolutely, the trades are definitely important. You know, Texas A&M University has the RELIS program, which is a great program because what it does is it allows students to get in and study a trade. And after 2 years, they get certified in that trade. And if they wish, they can continue into a bachelor's program. But if not, if they're done, they have a trade in hand. And so those programs are really important. And Mike Flores, Dr. Mike Flores is bringing that to San Antonio. We have to make sure that we give the students the option to choose their career path.
All right, now, we're on the public, you're going to have to do this here. So what are your thoughts on how you play a role to address the needs and concerns of young people who are experiencing homelessness, poverty, and or mental health challenges?
Well, it's a sad state of affairs. Our homeless situation here is horrible. And a lot of people are under the impression that homelessness happens because of drug addiction or mental health problems. There are many other reasons why homelessness happens. You know, you have a lot of children with incarcerated parents that have nowhere to go. A lot of children with no support network. So we have to be able to identify them. And we have a lot of good institutions here, like Haven for Hope, that can help. And the city needs to fund them. You know, that's why it's so important also to focus on philanthropy. These companies that are here giving money. You know, when New Star left, United Way was one of the organizations that lost some of that revenue. So did Haven for Hope. Haven for Hope lost $2 million when New Star left. So we have to make sure that we bring in the companies that are going to be able to support these programs. But look, the city needs to do a better job in supporting these organizations that then provide those services to the individuals.
Okay, and now the viewers.
Yeah, I've on the homelessness piece in particular. You know, as a member of the LGBTQ community, I know a large percentage of our homeless youth are in fact LGBTQ that have unfortunately been not accepted at home. I think it's important that we recognize again the unique challenges that some of our youth face. You know, last week we actually had a forum at SAC, and we had this very beautiful Mexican American mural behind us. And for me, it was poignant because when we're thinking about, again, an institution like San Antonio College, and we're also looking at the student makeup, it's really unfortunate that we have both federal and state leaders attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those things that are so critical to our folks, one, even getting into an institution like that, not only getting in though, but thriving, right? Thriving. And those programs are there to help them be successful, you know what, so they can be successful in our community. So as mayor, I would be, calling attention into the ways in which, having to do away with these programs, in fact, actually just makes these institutions, one, less welcoming. And when they're less welcoming, people will not go. And that's not good for our economy, right? So if somebody needs, if there's a certain group that needs more help with the FAFSA, or they need more help with mental health resources, or some of these other things, then I think those should be there, because those are not handouts, those are investments. And the more that we can help those folks be successful, they will graduate with the skills that we want, they will stay in our community, and they'll contribute in the way that they are able to, in the way that we need them to. So for me, and I saw this at the Department of the Air Force, right, diversity, equity, inclusion, that's just a way of making sure that we're helping everybody be their best.
30 seconds to Rolando.
I agree, and particularly with disabled students. I think we also need to make sure that we have the proper funding to support them. I sit on the board of Special Olympics Texas, and I see parents struggling every day. The parents that don't have that funding and are excluded need to be supported.
In 30 seconds, either.
Yeah, so this is important. It's not just a matter of agreeing on a stage and a forum, right? You've got to actually trust that that person's going to have your back. Rolando served as the Secretary of State to Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott is leading the charge on the attacks on these programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that are so critical in our community. I mean, these attempts to, frankly, that would allow for bullying of LGBTQ kids. I would say something about that. I question whether Rolando would. And this is important, because if we're talking about education, we have to talk about the education of all kids, and frankly, of all teachers as well.
All right, so she asked you a question. I want to hear a response. What do you do if I'm afraid of rules? I like break rules. So, what did she say something about Greg Abbott at DEI?
No. She's been affiliating me with Greg Abbott this entire time. And look, I have to tell you, I'm going to win. I have lived the experience. I have children that have been going through the process, particularly one with special needs. And so to be able to say that because Greg Abbott is doing something that I'm going to do, I think it's just disingenuous. But I'm not going to address it any further.
Okay, all right, so I have one last question. And you're going to wait long. So, New York East Coast, and they got workforce development education, how do you administrative work supporting young adults?
Well, I talked about this a little bit, but I think it's important. Not only do we have to think about that program in the context of, hey, what does our community need, right? We need more medical professionals, medical technical professionals. That partner that I mentioned earlier, they only produce about 300, but our community every year needs 1,200. Right? So how can we help to meet that gap? I think of the Ready to Work program as an important way in which we are preparing people to their capacity, right? We're not going to make rocket scientists, but we are like, what are the gaps in our community, and how can we train toward that? I'm very excited about the advanced manufacturing entity that is going to be part of the bond. Right? I think it's also important that we're looking at, as we are competing to bring companies here, for example, in advanced manufacturing, San Antonio is the 21st largest manufacturing exporting region in the country, right? I think part of us being able to bring other advanced manufacturing to our community is that we can show them that there is a healthy pipeline of talent to meet that need. So that's how I want to work with our higher ed, our trades, and certainly our the Ready to Work program is saying, hey, this is what we're going to try to compete for. This is where we are short. How can the city, in concert with the county and where able, with the federal level, at the state level, how can we help to meet that need? And again, show how a little bit of investment actually helps meet those things. And that's not just good for San Antonio, it's also good for the state. Again, we've got a great opportunity with the governor wants to bring cyber command here. Wonderful. Again, I just worked on national security issues and know that we should really be leaning into sectors where we have an advantage, and that is certainly one of them. So I think these are good opportunities, and thinking about the workforce program in the context of other educational opportunities is important for our economic development, and that's how I would think about those.
Okay, I'll do this. How do you envision where we're supporting young adults?
I think Ready to Work is a great idea. I was in support of it. I just think it's been mismanaged. I think we can get back in there and fix it. But look, I think you missed a great opportunity, and that is in supporting entrepreneurship. There are a lot of young, hungry individuals who want to start their own business. And we gotta be able to support them in that as well. Right now, there are no provisions for assisting individuals who want to start their own business. And nowadays with technology, you have our entrepreneurs are getting younger and younger every day. So we have to be able to support them. So what I would do is I would include a provision in Ready to Work for entrepreneurs. And that goes to all entrepreneurs, not just young entrepreneurs. We have to make sure that business owners are included in that definition so they can get that opportunity that they need to be able to run their business, hire people, and grow the economy.
All right, and now first sentence.
You know, one thing I think is important with the Ready to Work program, and frankly all programs, is they should work as they were sold to voters. That was a program that was sold as upskilling folks in our community to get a better job, having to go a higher income. It was not sold as a program that would subsidize the internal program, training programs of these multi-million-dollar corporations in our city. And unfortunately, you know, we had to do some of that as a result of frankly wanting to improve the numbers and show the program better than it is. And again, this is a critique of the data. Yeah, thanks.
All right, and so now, Pablo, you have to grab that.
Yeah, look, we just need to do a better job of writing Ready to Work, make sure that we include everybody. And frankly, another issue that was raised is whether it was intended to train government workers, and I don't know. But, you know, there are a lot of questions that are still out there that we just have to be able to take and answer the questions with full transparency and ensure that the program actually works this time.
So we're closing now. We want to thank all of y'all for being out here tonight. You all wake up each day. Y'all work on the challenges that we're going to discuss here all night tonight. You often are in partnership with the other teachers, other parents, trying to figure out how we're going to improve life to our young people. Working in partnership with the United Way, not partnership in early matters. I'd like to ask that each of the candidates take 1 minute to share how you would work with these frontline folks, having these to bring about the Senate that we all like to see. Well, I'll you have first 1 minute, and the ERP done to close out.
Well, I would have the funding. We need to make sure that funding is available. And I'm not just talking about city funding. Obviously, city funding is important, but I also work with you to go out into rural and bring in private capital so that you can get the philanthropy that you need. Because at the end of the day, that is what's going to drive your efforts. I will also work with you to develop policy and advocate for policy at the state and federal level. That's really essential. And I will leverage my relationships in Austin and in Washington to do so, because that is very important for us as a community. If we're going to get out of this poverty cycle, then we need to make sure that we focus on our youth, on our educational attainment, and I'm ready to go to work for you.
All right, now 1 minute. Ian Ortiz-Jones, close it.
I think the 3 most important questions any leader can ask are why not, and where is the data? And those are the questions that would guide me as I think about certainly the key feedback that you would provide to help us understand what's working well, what's not working well, and how can we think about opportunities and challenges in the context of the other things we're trying to do in our city, right? Address the inequities when it comes to public health, address the inequities when it comes to pay in certain communities. It all really starts with public education, a really solid early childhood education, which is why I've been so focused on that, and certainly supporting the providers that help those institutions run and make sure our kids are well served. So thank you so much. You have a partner in me, and again, please visit my website, GinaOrtizJones.com, to learn more about what I would do in this area to support the educational and ultimately economic outcomes in our community.
All right, well, so grateful for both of y'all's thoughts and your plans and your leadership on these really tough questions. I want a round of applause.